This work is co-authored with Dasom Choi and Hwajung, and we are all affiliated with KAIST in South Korea. So as we know, the language model is a machine learning model that predicts and generates natural language text. Since this model learns from human written text, they sometimes reproduce human stereotypes. So well-known analogy is man is to computer programmer and woman is to homemaker. So the NLP community has long recognized this issue. Researchers have devised benchmarks such as StereoSet or BBQ to measure the stereotypical bias, and they suggest various debiasing strategies in an effort to prevent harmful responses. In recent years, the technological advances have produced large language models with far more parameters than earlier models. Now, LLMs are considered to be more than just machine learning models. They are also regarded as an application that interacts directly with people. So web applications like ChatGPT let us have real-time conversation with the models. However, such direct interaction can expose users to stereotypes embedded in LLM, which may carry certain risks. As LLM become more widely accessible to everyday users, it is crucial to consider their perspectives as a key stakeholder. So to protect the user from the bias and harmful response of LLMs, we first have to answer the following questions. So how do users perceive and react to stereotypes in LLM during the direct interaction? And what do users consider when they perceive or identifying stereotypes in LLM? And what challenges arise when identifying and mitigate these stereotypes in LLM from the user's perspective? To answer this question, we had to pinpoint the exact moment when the user noticed or encountered the stereotypes in LLM, and that meant closely observing them as they interact with the models in real time. We therefore adopt the research probe methodology, which is the qualitative research method that can gather the rich and nuanced insight from the participants. So we developed Stereo Hunter, a research probe that lets users to elicit and evaluate stereotypical responses from LLM. So it was designed based on these three design rationale, which were the system have to facilitate user to elicit stereotypical response and enable user to label the response of the stereotype annotation and enable user to outline what criteria they considered when identifying stereotypes. So here's the Stereo Hunter's main interface. So in the first step, participants select the target group whose stereotype they try to explore. Next, they write a scenario that might draw out the stereotypical response about that group from the LLM. Then, LLM generates the dialogue appropriate to the user's input. And participants check the generated output and consider whether it contains a stereotypical biases. Then they assign the one of the 5 label. The options are stereotype, neutral, anti-stereotype, ambiguous, which we added to capture the subtle cases, and irrelevant, which they select when the model simply misunderstands their input. So whenever participants choose either stereotype or anti-stereotype, the system asks to brief follow-up questions that record why they made that decision. So participants repeat this cycle as many times with trial and error for the systemically probing and evaluating the model's stereotype. So using this research probe, we conducted a user study with 50 participants from across South Korea, aged 19 to 58. So each participant spent about an hour using Stereo Hunter to explore stereotype in the LLM and followed by a 1-hour interview to reflect more deeply on their experience. So the finding of our study consists of 4 parts, but due to the time constraint, today I will focus on section 5.4, the participants' perception regarding LLM stereotypes. So from our analysis, we drove 3 main themes that describe how participants perceive the LLM stereotypes. So the first theme is the gap between what they knew about LLM and what they observed firsthand. So through the user study, some participants were surprised to discover that LLM could display the human-like stereotypes, and they remarked that they would need to handle this technology more cautiously in the future. Conversely, several others says the model seems less biased than they heard about or believed beforehand, but after probing it, some participants perceive the model seems to avoid stereotype intentionally. So it means in sum, while the most users have the general idea of what stereotypes looks like, but their actual experience often turn out to be quite different, and at times, or even surprisingly so. And second themes, the concern that the trade-off between naturalness and the responsibility in stereotype handling. So after they confirmed the stereotype embedded in LLMs, several participants argued that the LLMs are almost like a public figure, so should be more cautious than humans about the stereotypical languages. On the other hand, some participants felt that avoiding every potentially biased expression made the conversation feel overly rigid or unnatural. So our participants tried to suggest some middle ground. So rather than censoring every stereotypical phrases, the model should maintain a natural and engaging flow while also flagging or gently warning users when the response may contain some stereotypical biases. And the third theme is that interaction with Stereo Hunter encourages users to reflect on themselves. So one participant described the LLM feels like a mirror which reflects the stereotype embedded in society. So because it's trained on the human-generated data. So this led users to compare the model's stereotype with their own, and some even felt the model was less biased than people or themselves. So, and conclude that the avoiding stereotype is the ultimately responsibility to human, including themselves. So let me end with two main points we highlighted in discussion session. So first, the people's judgment about stereotype are highly diverse and subjective. So participants varied not only in what they noticed about, but also in how sensitive they were. So because of this nuance, the binary benchmark often miss the important subtleties. So, but in fact, many participants in our study select the ambiguous label, showing that identifying stereotype isn't a straightforward yes or no task. So consequently, the future work should explore more multi-dimensional evaluation methods that extend beyond the static benchmarks and should investigate how to incorporate the human-in-the-loop process that foreground the user's perspectives. Second, the challenge for researcher is not just to debiasing LLM, because the stereotypes are subtle and subjective, so removing them entirely is really challenging. So now that LLMs are already the part of the everyday life, so we also need to help users to understand and navigate these technologies. So in other words, so we need to foster users' LLM literacy. So we therefore call for the future research on the effective way to build users' LLM literacy so that users become more aware of the potential biases in this model and can interact safely while taking this into their consideration. So, and our study also showed that the interaction style used in Stereo Hunter can help users to better understand the LLM stereotype. So we therefore encourage the future work to explore how this interaction can be further developed as a tool for prompting the user's LLM literacy. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and please check the paper for more details.